What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Daily Dime Friday edition off a big win for my Philadelphia Eagles and a couple 3-for-3s. We were 1 yard, literally 1 yard short of a 6-for-6 on the For the Millie stream yesterday. And it was Jahan Dotson over 8.5. He had an 8-yard reception on the first play of the game. So a little bit bittersweet there, but at least it was another strong night and another big win for my Eagles.
You talk about bittersweet Wednesday night, right? It's always about Wemby for me, but the fastest 50-point game in NBA history. Of course, we're on the stocks. Of course, he comes up just a half stock short there. So again, dancing around that big night, both on the NBA and NFL sides. But man, DFS for NBA has been on fire over the last 10 days. You get another 10K from Cody J in there the other night. I told you when I woke up yesterday, I was like, Alex, I think I might have swapped off the 100K lineup. Luckily, I would have come up a few points short. But yeah, it's been really nice on the DFS side too. So let's get a little 6-for-6 here today. It looks like we've got some promos. Of course, it's your Flex Friday on Prize Picks, but we have a little risk-free NBA entry on Underdog as well.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I gotta refresh.
Looks like a little $10 max, but we'll take it. We'll take it.
Absolutely. All right. Why don't we jump right into some underdog picks, because I know we have a bunch we like, and then hopefully we will see the blocks and steals combo drop as we are live as well. So why don't you take us to your first pick?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to this one that you and I were discussing right before the stream. I want to talk about RJ Barrett, Raptors hosting the Pistons tonight. And I guess before we even get into this, NBA Cup group stage night here. Again, those are Tuesdays and Fridays for the rest of this month. So keep in mind, right, in these games, this one, not so much of a concern, just a 1-point spread actually in favor of the visiting Pistons. But I think that plays well into what we're talking about here with RJ. But some of those games with the larger spreads don't necessarily have to be as worried about garbage time and guys getting pulled early because of the point differential tiebreakers in this group stage. Of course, not every team treats them the same, but it is something to be cognizant of. Now, RJ Barrett. No Emmanuel Quickly going to be out, I believe, at least another week here. So kind of fits and starts here for IQ. But we know with no Scotty Barnes, no Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett assumes a gigantic role in this offense. And we could have a whole nother conversation about how good Grady Dick has been so far this year, at least from a statistical standpoint. But RJ Barrett is still the man. He's still going to be the hub of this offense. And I'm actually just going to go to the PRA here. Alex, the model likes a slight over here. I think he could shoot past this number of 33.5. This is a guy who, with IQ out, I was sitting there reading off the field goals attempted to you. With IQ out this season, field goals attempted, last game just 14 for RJ, but the blowout loss, only 31 minutes against Milwaukee. You look back at these other games that Quickly has missed, and of course, Scotty Barnes been out as well. Field goal attempts, 19, 21, 26, 22, 18, 21. I also like the 11.5 rebounds plus assists. Those have certainly been there throughout the season. And you get the 1.06x there if you go there. But I think because of the volume, the total usage for RJ here tonight, he could get close to this PRA number on points alone. And we know those other counting stats are going to be there in some form or fashion. So that's why I kind of want to get the whole package here tonight in a game, respectable mid 220s implied total. Again, just a 1-point spread. RJ Barrett should be off the charts here tonight in terms of picking up all of these counting stats.
If we had the field goal attempts available on Underdog as well, would you prefer those to the PRA, or are you just going PRA regardless?
I would have loved, over on Prize Picks this morning, they first posted his field goals attempted number at 17. I thought that was a windmill slam over there. Now it's up to 18. So still, if I had, Nerf gun to my head, I would lean towards the over. But I think PRA, kind of this all-encompassing approach to RJ, is what I want to attack here this morning.
Cool. I like it. I'm going to go to one that the model absolutely loves, De'Aaron Fox over 25.5 points. And one of the reasons why I love this, I think the easy things to point to are the fact that Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan out. At least DeRozan's doubtful. We know Monk is out. So that part is there. But then I also love the fact that our betting model, which is so incredibly strong at the team level, has a significant edge to the over. It's the largest edge in the betting model of the night. this over, and it has the second strongest edge of the night to the Kings. So all of that just screams De'Aaron Fox. I'm going to start with the higher 25.5 points, but basically everything that I played tonight, I'm probably going to play a second time, laddering De'Aaron Fox's points all the way up to, I think I'll go to 34.5 at this 2.64x and just do that one instead of going with each step. But I'm also a little bit intrigued by the 39.5, but I think I'll probably stay
7x or there.
it's a big number, right? I need to do a little research. Like historically, has Fox been able to get there, or does he have a plateau of sorts? Because sometimes you just see that in guys where, he doesn't have the 3-point upside that some great scorers in the league have. Most of what he's doing is at the basket, driving in the mid-range. So maybe he has a plateau at like 35, 36, something like that I'll want to avoid that 39.5 number. But I'm going to ladder him in some way for sure.
Yeah, and that's we attacked Fox on Wednesday, right? And that was one of those picks that came in later in the night for us. And of course, right, when you get the 6-pick play here on the Daily Dime and you have a Derek White first quarter prop and that busts your entry, right, from being perfect right at the beginning of the night, it doesn't feel good. But the rest of that entry looked pretty solid. Fox was a part of it. And you mentioned the absences here, right? Like that's not the only reason we're on it, as you explained, but it also, like, with no DeRozan and no Malik Monk, you look at what De'Aaron Fox was doing last season with no DeMar DeRozan in the fold, right? 26.6 points per game. Another one that I like to attack over there on Prize Picks, if you're there instead of Underdog, they have his 3-pointers attempted line set at 6. The model also loves this one. 7.8 3-point attempts per game last season for Fox before DeRozan arrived. I think we probably get closer to that number here tonight.
I will mention the tool likes that one even more than the 25.5. It's a 75% win probability. And part of that is, as we talk about, like, how Fox likes to attack. Well, there is the issue of Rudy Gobert being in the paint. So Fox might be a little bit more content to take that open 3 tonight instead of testing him at the rim. So I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with that 3-point attempt number. That seems pretty strong as well. The only thing is you can't ladder it, right? So actually maybe the move is you don't even take the over on points. You either take the over on the 3-point attempts, or you go to that big number, the 34.5 points, something like that, and just say, hey, I want him taking threes regardless. If they're not falling, he's probably not going to hit that, big giant points number. So I'll be happy with the 3-point attempts. If they are falling, taking more threes actually gives him an even better chance than usual to go over 34.5 or over 39.5. So that might be an even sharper way to approach this. I don't believe the 3-point attempts are available yet. Just the 3-pointers made at 0.83x. So I wonder what some of these others are. 2.5, 3.5. Yeah, those aren't.
Say the 2.5, 1.37x. If we are kind of buying into a role that's more similar to last season for Fox, those 3-pointers made was at 2.9. So maybe not terrible to get the 2.5 there. And then you're really cooking with gas if you go over 3.5 and you think we're going to have a big game from downtown here. And maybe there's something to that, thinking about a game script with Rudy Gobert down there in the paint.
If you want at least 7x, would you prefer the over 4.5 threes or the over 39.5 points?
I think I'm probably just going to the points there. But that's an interesting decision if you're really swinging for the fences.
Yeah, I'm looking. He had a stretch. Let's see, when was that? Last April, where he had 6, then 7, then 3, then 7 threes in 4 consecutive games. Only hit 40 once in those 4. So I might actually go with the 4.5
threes. Yeah, it is the threes. And like, also, you could probably make the argument that, is he getting to 40 points without 5 threes? That's probably going to be a big catalyst there. I do want to say, in this game specifically on Underdog, while we're waiting for stocks props, we've talked about centers against this Minnesota front court, and in particular their steals. So I'll be watching Sabonis and see if we get some of those lines posted here throughout the afternoon.
I could not agree more with that. I can't wait to see if he's up there because he's averaging, I think, 1.0 stocks this year. We've got some stocks. Do we have Sabonis? Come on.
No.
Show me Sabonis. Ah, damn.
Yeah,
Well,
of course.
I was hopeful because last year he averaged 1.5. So I thought we might get 1.5 because he's all the way down at 1.0 this year with like a really nice multiplier, which would have been very, very fun to go after. But it is what it is. Maybe they'll add it. We'll probably have to look through some of these before we jump off of here. But why don't you take us to your next favorite pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go to this one for the third straight time and with a little bit more, not hesitancy, but there are certainly question marks, especially if you're just looking at the injury report for Memphis here, because Memphis taking on the Warriors in their cup game tonight, and that's out in the Bay. So I believe the Warriors are like 8.5-point home favorites here, if memory serves. And Triple J's points line down to 22.5, I think mostly because Desmond Bane, surprise upgrade last night when the Grizzlies released their injury report for tonight's game. Desmond Bane was referred to as week to week, he and Ja Morant, by Coach Jenkins on Tuesday. So if you go Twitter search right now, Desmond Bane, it is the official injury update. And then a number of Grizzlies fans acting surprised that Desmond Bane went from week to week to questionable in the span of 3 days. So I think, I respect what this Memphis team has done to keep their heads not only afloat, but above 500 here in this tough period to begin the season. Vince Williams Jr. also listed questionable. And this is just my read here this morning, so this could be wrong. I think Vince Williams suits up and plays limited minutes. I think we probably see Desmond Bane sit out one more. He's coming back from that oblique strain. That is not something that's, speaking from experience, that is not easy to recover from. And of course, you don't see that a ton in basketball players, so it can be a little bit finicky. Even if Desmond Bane was in here, Alex, right? We talked extensively over the last few times the Grizzlies were on the slate about why we like Triple J so much when Bane and Ja Morant are off the floor, even since the beginning of last season. With Desmond Bane on and Ja Morant off, Jaren Jackson still around a 27.5% usage rate. And in 3 of his last 4 games, right, you're also maybe thinking about the matchup. Does Draymond Green give Triple J some significant issues? Triple J, in his last 4 meetings with, or against rather, Draymond Green, he's over in 3 of 4 of those. And 2 of those 3, you had Desmond Bane and no Ja Morant. So I'm not super worried about looking at any sort of recent matchups between these 2 players and saying that Draymond is causing a ton of problems for Jaren Jackson. So if we do get Desmond Bane out, as Eileen happens later on tonight, again, this game not on DraftKings main slate, but he will be on FanDuel's. I think he's a very sneaky GPP play if Bane sits, and this 22.5 number would feel like a steal if Bane does miss this one. And again, I'm not hating it even if Bane is in, because Jaren Jackson's still going to have a really sizable role.
Yeah, in fact, I asked you if you were worried about the matchup, and then you went and found data that quelled that concern and the concern of what happens if Bane suits up. So I'm with you on this pick, and I will take us to another one that the model loves, another JA named Jalen Johnson, this time with Atlanta, going up against Washington, the 3rd time that these 2 teams are meeting already this season. It's a pace-up spot. Washington misses a lot of shots because of that. They allow a ton of rebounds from opponents, actually over 58 per game. 4th place, the 4th most opponent rebounds per game is at like 54.5. So just a huge, huge number that this Washington team allows. We have Jalen Johnson projected around 12. He's had 12 and 17 in the prior 2 games against Washington. And last data point, Washington allowing 38% more rebounds per game to opposing power forwards than they averaged so far this season. So everything just screaming Jalen Johnson over 9.5 rebounds to me tonight.
Yeah, I like that pick a ton, right? I think you mentioned over in half of his games so far, 6 of 12 appearances, but 3 of those misses, he's sitting right there at 9 rebounds. So everything else that you touched on, the pace, the matchup, the history we've already seen, right? These 2 teams played twice already this season, and he soared over this number. Implied total coming in near 240 here this morning. And again, cup game, so Hawks almost double-digit favorites here. But even with DeAndre Hunter back in the mix tonight, I think you can count on a sizable, or not even just DeAndre Hunter bearing the lead, Trae Young coming back. But I think you'll still get huge minutes out of Jalen Johnson here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that when he has gone under, it's been at 9 a couple of times. When he's gone over, it's not like he's going over with 10, and 11. He's had 12 twice. He's had 15. He's had 17. So yeah, I think we will see the percentage going over this number come up, even as his average kind of stays the same. So I just think this number's too low. It should be 10.5 at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. What else do you got? Because I'm taking a look here at my guy Steph Castle, but still looking for some stuff. So let's go to the Paul George prop that you were mentioning to me this morning.
Yeah, over 5.5 first quarter points, I think, is really strong. We had the over 4.5 last game. He got to, I think it was 11. But more important than that, it's the way in which that happened. So first of all, Nick Nurse has said the minutes restriction for Paul George is gone. It was basically gone last game, but now it is officially gone. He played 10 minutes. In the first quarter, Embiid played 5, sat 5, and when he came back in for the final 2 minutes of the quarter, Paul George came out. So I think we'll see something like that at the worst for Paul George, 10 minutes where 5 of those minutes are without Embiid on the floor. Obviously great for his scoring. But I also think there's a chance that with the minutes limit completely gone, that we see more of a Jason Tatum-like first quarter rotation where Paul George plays the entire first quarter, then sits to start the second quarter. Even if it's only an extra minute in the first quarter, that's still pretty meaningful. And certainly Embiid will still be on those short stint type of rotations, which means that a lot of those first quarter minutes for Paul George are coming with Embiid off the floor, meaning massive usage. So I think this 5.5 number is still too low for Paul George.
Yeah, I like that pick on PG. I think that makes total sense to me, especially the way that we saw them run out those rotations last time against the Knicks, right, in Embiid's debut game. I don't have much else to add. I think that number is a little bit too low.
All right. Should we try and find the sixth one from stocks?
Yeah, let's do that because I'm looking at Steph Castle. I'm very enticed by 1.26x on his lower than a half 3-pointer made. But I am still just a little bit worried about the minutes trickling up. I still expect him to be in the starting lineup here tonight. And when he's getting upper 20s to maybe low 30s in minutes, he's getting, 4.5 3-point attempts up per game since he's entered this starting lineup. As soon, that'll be something to watch because I do think Steph Castle, as San Antonio gets more healthy here, as Devin Vassell starts to play more minutes, he will enter the starting lineup. I imagine that is for Stephon Castle. So hover over that button closer to lock because if that type of line is available and you see Devin Vassell in the starting lineup, smash the under on Steph Castle made threes, smash the under on his first quarter lines, and you're getting juice on most of those right now. His under on first quarter rebounds, under on points, under on first quarter assists, all above that one multiplier. So again, sometimes you got to look in the morning and see these scenarios that could play out and be ready to move quickly later in the day. And I think that's how I want to approach a guy like Castle.
I've got one. Dyson Daniels is averaging 4.3 stocks per game, and we can get him at over 2.5 against a Washington team that's pace up, allows more blocks and steals per game than average. Why is he at 2.5 here?
Yeah, so my thinking there is that they're accounting for DeAndre Hunter returning. I still think that we're going to have a starting Dyson Daniels, though. Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm trying to pull up our stocks projections here and see what Dyson is looking like.
I'm also checking how many minutes we have him projected for. Yeah. We still have him at 34 with Hunter at 25, Trae at 35. So if he's playing 34 minutes, he's going over 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds right to me because, again, he should continue to start at the 2. Yeah, I like that one. I'm kind of feeling okay, what are we missing?
Right.
On Dyson Daniels, because this guy has had, I don't know, 1,500 steals in the last week. I mean, his stocks just the last 4 games, 6, 6, 9, 5. Again, I know that like one of those games is without Trae Young.
Yeah.
All of those games have been without DeAndre Hunter, but still, the minutes should be there. And like you look at him last year, 22, just shy of 22 and a half minutes per game. With the Pelicans, he was 1.8 stocks per game. So again, I think this is pretty much in line with his career averages where if you're projecting Dyson Daniels for mid-30s in minutes, he should probably not be at that just even multiplier, right? The higher lower here. So yeah, I like that one a good bit.
I've got another one for you here. Alperen Şengün over 2.5, 1.19x here. He's averaging 2.4 on the season, but the Clippers have been one of those teams that we've identified as a great matchup for center stocks. 25% more blocks per game, 64% more steals per game, and Şengün actually closer in steals per game to blocks per game than most centers are. He's at 0.9 steals, 1.5 blocks. For some of them, it's like 2.5 blocks, 0.7 steals or something like that. So this seems like a fantastic stocks matchup for Şengün, and he's not priced that way.
Yeah, I think it's nice that you're getting the extra multiplier there. Like that's what would put me over the top on that. I think still straight up, I would prefer the Dyson Daniels pick if we're looking for, that 6th and final pick here this morning. But I don't hate the Şengün prep either, right? I think that's something that maybe the projection model here isn't factoring in quite really what the Clippers are doing for opposing bigs so far this year. And like if you need any extra evidence, these teams just played 2 nights ago, 4 blocks and a steal for Şengün. So again, that's not what you should be basing these picks off on, but it's another factor that you can consider when you're looking at a prop like Şengün and his 2.5 stocks.
Yeah, it shows that he was able to take advantage of the matchup already this season. By the way, you can go to 7. You can go to 8 picks over on Underdog. You can take your favorites of the ones that we have chosen here. So I personally, I don't even know exactly what I'm going to end up playing of these tonight. I really like all of these, so it might be a big combination. I will say, as we have talked about before, 3-pick and 6-pick payouts are the best here in Underdog. So sometimes when I have 7 picks I really like, I don't run a 7-pick play. I just run 7 different 6-pick plays, leaving each one out only one time. So that might be the path for me tonight. Any other stocks here standing out to you?
Well, I think we had Albert in the chat saying, talk about Sar, talk about Eason. Sar blocks, looks like they got a little wise here. I think Sar got this in the first quarter against San Antonio on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. His 1.5 blocks is now 0.85x here on Underdog, but you can get 2.5 stocks with just that even 1x multiplier, and that doesn't feel too bad. Again, with the pace of this matchup against Atlanta here tonight. Obviously, we also have 2 games that Sar has played against Atlanta already. He had 3 and 5 stocks, respectively, in those games. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4 of his 10 appearances, he's gone under this number. So it doesn't seem like it's the windmill slam that 1.5 blocks has been so far this season. I don't hate that, but I don't think it beats out any of these other picks for me that we've talked about here this morning. What about you, or maybe talking about Tari Eason?
No, I agree with all that. I would also say Wembanyama, 4.5, not juiced anymore. So that still catches my eye. Bad matchup with LA, but I think 4.5 is just too low for Wemby in any matchup. So definitely have interest in that one. And then one thing I will say about Tari Eason is it's without question a better stocks matchup for centers than any other position against LAC so far from what we've seen. Not surprising, Zubac is both around the rim and involved in so much of the action in the pick and roll. So that puts the center in perfect shape, perfect position for those stocks. So that's data that both we see in the data and is also just very intuitive with our understanding of basketball and how they are playing. So I definitely like it more for Şengün than Eason, but I think it's probably still fine for Eason.
So you can also get just 1.5 steals for Eason at 1.22x, and projection model has him for 2.2 steals here in his 24 minutes against the Clippers tonight. He is averaging 1.8 steals per game. on the season so far. Just got the one against the Clippers the other night. So I think these are appropriately priced here by Underdog, giving you that little extra, dangling the cookie in front of us. Like, look, here's Tari Eason, some plus money at 1.5 steals or his 2.5 stocks. I think for now it's a stay away for me. But I like where Albert's head is at there, because these are the exact type of situations that we're trying to at least take a second look at and figure out if we can get them into our rotation on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's also a great stocks matchup for Draymond Green. He's down to 2.2 stocks per game, though, this season. So surprising numbers to see, only at 1.5 this month here in November. So lower than what we have seen, but we are getting a 1.22x. So that has my attention. I'm not going to say it's a strong pick for me, but I would definitely lean the higher than over the lower for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else for you here? I'm scanning the fantasy score props on Prize Picks are starting to populate here. We talked about RJ Barrett early on in the stream and his PRA. I think 36.5 for his fantasy score would be an easy over for me as well. Just scanning this board. Bam at 42.5. I know he came up short against the Pistons, even in overtime last time out. But with Jimmy Butler still out here, he's probably going to project. Again, I don't think when we started the stream, it didn't look like we had an ownership run up quite yet here at FTN Fantasy, but he's somebody that I have my eye on there as well. Any other picks that we have from this fantasy scoreboard, as I did on Wednesday, I will post those into the chat, our Pick'em Games channel of the FTN Fantasy Discord. Well, Alex has hopped out real quick, taking advantage or taking care of something here. Let me. There he is. He's back. Okay. Let's jump over. Oh, you're muted. You're muted now. You're muted now.
just hitting all the wrong buttons. I went to remove the Underdog screen and removed my own screen instead. But I'm back now. I'm back. I was actually going to put you on the spot there. We don't have an ownership run up yet. It will be up very shortly, probably around like 1:30, 2 o'clock is my best guess. But without that ownership run, do you have a guess for both who you think is going to be the best chalk on the slate? Maybe some chalk that we could look at fading as well?
Yeah, I think for me, we are probably going to see, especially since about a half hour ago, we got the news that Grayson Allen went through shoot around here. Of course, Bradley Beal going to be out again here for the Suns. They are taking on another shorthanded team, but a team that is still probably going to run them off the court at the end of the night in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder right now getting to this game, 8-point home favorites, but Grayson Allen is so damn cheap on both sites. I think he's probably going to be one of the top owned players once we get that ownership run in here shortly. And if he doesn't play, I think on both sides, you can make a contingency plan to get Josh Okogie in there. We saw him go 10 of 15 from the field the other night. So really looking at Phoenix for some value there. We have a questionable tag on the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic. So like personal issue. So they're matched up against the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy, and the Pelicans G League team here tonight. So they're only 4-point road favorites, the Nuggets, that is, in New Orleans. That kind of reads to me like Jokic might sit this one out, because I think a 4-point favorite would make some sense for Murray and MPJ and the rest of these Nuggets going up against this shorthanded Pelicans team. I think so. That's something to watch. Obviously, if he's sitting out, then you get presented with, are we really going to roster a Zeke Naji, a Dario Saric, a DeAndre Jordan? And then, okay, so there you go, birth of his child. Jordan and Zeke together. See, Lemons, I think I would go the opposite direction. I think this game could go small. I would be looking more towards value pieces in a Peyton Watson, probably a Julian Strother. He's probably going to be really, really cheap on both sides. Obviously, I have the technology here. We can find Strother, 3,500. I think he's still guard forward eligible on DraftKings. So I think I'm personally looking away from those potential Nuggets values because the Pelicans can run just as small. And I think they would be probably pretty happy to do that with Jokic off the floor. It just on a slate this big with, I think, enough value, it's really tough for me to prioritize a guy like DeAndre Jordan, who has been dust for half a decade now.
Yeah.
He still put up fantasy points. The guy get, putbacks and lobs and rebounds, but and he's, probably min price here. But on the surface, it doesn't, it does not excite me. That's for sure.
I think Westbrook's minutes would still be capped with Jamal Murray back in action, but 24 and 20 minutes in the last 2 games, still producing on a per minute basis in a really strong way. So if Jokic were out, I think Westbrook 5,200 would become very interesting to me. It probably would become fairly chalky as well, but also worth noting that, to your point, like if Denver chose to go smaller, that would also lead to more Westbrook minutes as well. So I think that's a strong one. And then no one will be surprised to hear that I am most likely to just attack these great game environments we have. We have Atlanta in a smash spot again, and trusting the betting model, saying the over in that Sacramento game, the edge to Sacramento. I'll be on some Kings for sure tonight, whether that's Fox, Sabonis, or some peripheral guys as well.
Yeah, like specifically in that Atlanta-Washington matchup, I think that if you're, MME builds in these large field tournaments here tonight, really on either site, if you're trying to get some cheap exposure to that game, and again, I have a better idea on how we want to attack this game when we get that ownership run in, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of ownership on a guy like DeAndre Hunter. I think the minutes come right back. Now, like DeAndre Hunter has never been the guy that you think about when you're thinking about, fantasy points, especially being efficient with his minutes. But I think the minutes come right back to low to mid 30s here, 5,200 on DraftKings. Fantastic matchup. That's, again, a way that maybe you can get a little bit different if we start to see some ownership coalesce around the bigger names in this game, particularly on the Atlanta side. I'm also, not surprised to see, if the ownership gets spit out and we don't have a lot of interest in the Atlanta side as a whole because they're getting Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter back in the mix here, and you've got basically 9K Jalen Johnson, 6,500 Dyson Daniels, 54 on Ricochet, who should go back to the bench. So I could see the field not being as high on them as we are on paper. But I did just want to mention him being back and the fact that he first missed with a knee injury, but the last few games it's been a personal issue. So I don't have a huge concern about any sort of big minutes limit there on the Hawks wing. Trying to think of other spots, right? Still shorthanded Pelicans. So I would expect Jalen Noel to come off the bench again, but he's still very, very cheap on both sides. Got about 25 and a half minutes last time out, 11 shot attempts. So that's a usable piece of value. And again, your Peyton Watsons, Julian Strothers, and the like, if Jokic is out, we'll be mixing and matching those guys in, throughout our builds here. Chris Dunn, I guess, is the last kind of value piece I wanted to bring up before we shut it down here, Alex. Got into the Clippers starting lineup against the Rockets on Wednesday in place of Terrence Mann. Played, I think, just shy of 30 minutes or right around 30. And so for his price, 4,700 over there on FanDuel. Chris Dunn, 4,400 point and shooting guard eligible on DraftKings. He might be the guy, again, when we see this ownership run over the next hour, he might be the value that's picking up the most ownership right now. I would not be surprised to see it be him or, again, those guys I started with, Grayson Allen or Josh Okogie.
It's interesting. Whenever Dunn plays well, it's how is this guy not earned himself a bigger role in the NBA yet? And then when it goes poorly, it looks so bad and so helpless. How does this guy ever score a fantasy point, period? It's always interesting to see which Chris Dunn shows up. But
the last thing go ahead.
It just might be one of those instances where, like you say, the more popular he gets, just go the other direction. And if he is a little bit lower owned than we maybe expect him to be, then go all in on him. So I think that's probably the way I'll play it.
And this game is disgusting. Knicks 9.5 point home favorites, 215 implied total, hosting the Nets, crosstown rivals here tonight. No Nick Claxton now, going to miss at least 1 week with that back issue. Dorian Finney-Smith is back tonight. Ben Simmons is not on the injury report. So we're going to have a little bit of a mash unit here in the front court with DFS with Ben Simmons. This is not bad news at all for Zaire Williams, who has been pretty darn good from a fantasy standpoint relative to his price on both sites over the last couple games. Noah Clowney is very cheap. So I think we're going to see the field pick up on some of these Nets values. I'm cautious with my approach there again, because they still have plenty of bodies and it's a tough matchup and not a great fantasy environment on paper. But that is a place that will be paid attention to by the field. And again, rightfully so. There's going to be somebody out of that group that gets you a score you want to have at the end of the night. We just got to figure out which one it's going to be.
Yeah, agree with all that. One final thing I will note, reminder to everybody, brand new show this week, the main slate matchups for NFL. You can still go watch that. That will, of course, be relevant all the way into the start of Sunday's game. So check that out. And we will be back on Monday. Thanks again for tuning in.